And now we're along with our good friend Jamie Hall of SemoSportsWeb.com. And Jamie, as always, it's good to have you with us.
It's good to be back, Tyler.
Sure, and it's a very exciting time right now, Jamie. We're already 2 weeks into district play in high school football, only 1 week remaining. So in some of these districts, we pretty much already know a district champion to move on, but we've got some big district championship games coming up this week.
You know, and since the district format has been set up the way it is now, with the last 3 games of the year counting as the district toward the district standings, I don't remember ever in the past where you've had so many districts that have come down to 2-0 teams in that last week. I know a lot of times at this point of the year, you're kind of looking at the standings thinking, well, if this team wins and this team loses and you got the points and you're trying to figure all that out. This year, they're really making it simple. You've got all these 2-0 teams going into the last week. It's just coming down to that last game, and you know that's what the district. That's how the district is supposed to be. That's how the district setup is supposed to work out. So it's a perfect finish to the season.
Sure, and we've got some big matchups, and we'll touch on those here momentarily. But let's go to your SEMO 34 poll. They're at SemoSportsWeb.com, ranking the top teams in Southeast Missouri. And at number 1, as they've been all year, and I think for about 2.5 years, they've been at that top rank, are the Sikeston Bulldogs. 2, Farmington. Jamie, we've got the top 2 in Sikeston and Farmington. They share the same district, and they'll be going for the district championship come next Friday night. So that's one of the big matchups we're talking about.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. And Sikeston has been in that number 1 spot now all this season, as well as all of last season. So you're looking at about 25, 26 weeks, I think, at this point. I think Farmington is probably in as good a position as they've ever been to beat Sikeston this year. Now, whether they can do it, you know, that's another story. Sikeston is used to these situations. Kent Gibbs is a great coach in crunch time. They're going to be tough to beat next week.
Yeah, it'll certainly be a great game to look forward to between there and Sikeston and Farmington. Moving on for the rest of the poll, that's Dexter at number 3. They were previously ranked 4th, and Dexter is one team that has really opened some eyes this year, Jamie. They've beat Crothersville this year in a great game a few weeks we had here on YHC, and they're, I believe, 8-1 on the year now, so I think they've set a school record for wins in a season, or wins in a regular season, and they're likely to finish out probably 9-1 this year, so a great season so far for the Bearcats.
And you know, if the favorites win going into the first round of the state playoffs, if you've got Dexter, which is they're favored to win next week, not to say that they are locked by any stretch, but they're favored. And then you've got St. Genevieve on the other side of that bracket. They're going to be favored to win next week. You could very well be looking at a Dexter-St. Genevieve rematch in the first round of the playoffs. You're talking a couple of great offensive teams, a lot of points, good quarterbacks. That would be one of the best games of the year. Should be. Yeah,
sure should. And we'll touch on that in just a moment. And rounding out the rest of the poll, 4th, Crothersville. 5th, Cape Central. 6th, Valley Catholic. 7th, St. Genevieve. 8, Thayer. 9, Hillsboro. 10, Hayti. 11, Malden. 12, Festus. 13, Salem. 14, Crystal City. 15, Park Hill Central. 16, DeSoto. 17, Charleston. 18, Herculaneum. 19, Poplar Bluff. 20, Chaffee. 21, St. Vincent. 22, Jackson. 23, Scott City. 24, Fredericktown. 25, Windsor. 26, North County. 27, Kennett. 28, Potosi. 29, Portageville. 30, Perryville. 31, New Matter County Central. 32, East Prairie. 33, Grandview. And 34, St. Pius. So there's your SEMO 34 poll from SemoSportsWeb.com. And we've been bringing that to you all season, ranking the top 34 teams in Southeast Missouri. And let's go ahead and move on to the standings for district football here in Southeast Missouri. And, Jamie, we're going to go ahead and start with Class 1, District 1. And we've got Thayer on top of that district with a 2-0 record. And Hayti and Kabul follow at 1-1. And Portageville at 0-2. It looks like Thayer's in the driver's seat, ready to win that district title once again this year.
Yeah, and, I think Thayer probably opened a lot of eyes when they knocked off Hayti last week. And really, not as close of a game as you would have expected out of Haytide, and Haytide's a solid team this year, but Thayer, this area doesn't really get a lot of looks at Thayer since they're on the western edge of the region. They play a lot of teams out in central Missouri, western Missouri, but you know what? When that team comes over into southeast Missouri, they're tough to beat. They're a tough team, a solid team, great coaching. It'll be a good matchup when they get back into this area, and probably play a team, say like Valley Catholic.
Yeah, Valley Catholic's always a big matchup for them when they get into playoff play. And two great teams, great programs there with Thayer and Valley Catholic. Valley Catholic's in the neighboring district in District 2, so you're likely to see probably at this point Thayer and we've got to, they got to play. Haytide might, if they finish out the season in second place in that district, they'll go on and play Valley Catholic in that regional round in the playoffs. So you might see Thayer and Valley Catholic go at it once again in the sectionals this year. And moving on to Class 2, District 1, we have Crothersville in the driver's seat at 2-0. Charleston also 2-0. They've defeated East Prairie and Malden, and East Prairie and Malden pretty much wrapped up their season last night with losses, and they dropped to 0-2. So Crothersville and Charleston, that'll be the district championship next week. Jamie, and Charleston, they've really come on and played some strong ball here in the last 3 contests in this season.
Charleston is really coming on strong at just the right time. They started out the season a little rocky. It was hard to really get a good read on where they stood, but they've really put things together. They've really gelled about mid-season, like you said. They're making a really good run, and I got to tell you, I'm surprised that Malden. I was surprised to see that score last night from Charleston Malden. At the start of the season, if you told me that Malden would be 0-2 in the district, I wouldn't have believed it. But you know what? They still got some young talent on that team. They're going to be tough the next couple of years. But Charleston Crothersville next week, you gotta give the edge to Crothersville. But the way Charleston's coming on, they could give them a game. They could be a surprise.
Yeah, they really could, and they've played some great ball. I really expected Malden to be a close game there with Malden and Charleston, but Malden, they've lost Raymond Wilson for the year, and he really provided them some explosiveness out of the backfield. And they're a young team. Malden is too. I think they might be graduating one senior this year, so they're a young team, and you lose Raymond Wilson, that makes it even tougher to go up against a team explosive such as Charleston. I hear they've really gotten explosive here in the last 3 games. So Crothersville and Charleston for that Class 2 District 1 title next week. And moving on to Class 3 District 1, we'll have a district championship lined up next week as well. And that game will be live right here on YHC between Dexter and Fredericktown, both at 2-0. And Kennett and New Madrid County Central both suffering two losses. So it's coming down to Dexter and Fredericktown. And this has been a pretty good series over the past few years, Jamie. But Dexter just seems like they're rolling at this point of the season. Fredericktown got an impressive win over Kennett last night. But it could be a nice game. But Dexter having probably one of their finest seasons in school history.
Well, I think you saw the scores from last night. Dexter and Fredericktown both put up a lot of points. They both love to move the ball. They're both really good at moving the ball. I think you could see a good high-scoring game next week. It's going to be hard to knock off Dexter at this point of the season. They're just so tough. They're on a really good run right now. Fredericktown, but Fredericktown goes into a game like that, they've got nothing to lose. They know they're the underdog. But Dexter's got to watch out. Dexter knows they're in the playoffs. They know that they're favored in this game. So they just got to be careful next week, not take it for granted, not get too relaxed at this point of the season. Stay focused, and they'll be in a good position after next week.
Yeah, we'll be looking forward to that district championship right here on YHC live next Friday night. So be sure to tune in for that next Friday night right here on YHC, Dexter versus Fredericktown. And moving on to Class 4 District 1, and that'll be Sykeston and Farmington in that district championship next week. They're both 2-0. Cape Central was they're in the hunt, at least probably the third best team, having a shot to get into the playoffs, but they suffered 2 losses to Farmington and Sykeston. So they're pretty much out of the playoff hunt, as well as Perryville at 0-2. So Sykeston and Farmington, as we touched on earlier, Jamie, big matchup between these two teams. You probably look into this game, Sykeston probably not as strong as last year, but Farmington probably at least a little bit stronger than last year. I'm not real familiar with Farmington, but this is going to be a heck of a matchup next week in this Class 4 District 1 championship.
You know, and both of those teams lost some really good talent from last year, so they have a little bit of a different look this year. You know, seeing the exact same teams by any stretch, but boy, they are in really good shape going into next week. Sykeston's going to be a little. You know, Sykeston had a really big game against Cape Central last night. That's one of their big rivalries of the year, maybe the big rivalry of the year, just because both teams are so evenly matched the last few seasons. But Sykeston had a big emotional game. They're coming off of that. They've got to get focused now on Farmington, which isn't one of their traditional rivals, but it's a huge game this year. Farmington goes into this in a really good position because they're playing for a district championship, having one of their best seasons in a long time, and they're sort of like Fredericktown is in Class 3. Farmington's got nothing to lose. They're going to go in there with guns blazing for this one. So Sykeston's got to watch out. They can't let the guard down. They know they're in the playoffs, so they got to really stay focused on this game because this is going to be a tough one.
Sure, and just looking into this game, and I touched on this in the state rankings earlier, Jamie, that Sykeston hasn't gotten any love in the state polls this year. They've only got one loss on the year, and that's to a tough Gateway Tech team, and I think they play out of Class 5. And Farmington cracks into that top 10 over the last few weeks at number 9. So, you know, that might be a little motivation for Sykeston to come into this game and show that, you know, they're one of the best teams in the state. Even though they lost a bit from last year, they've got a good season at 8-1. So, kind of looking at this game, Sykeston might be considered the underdog just looking at the rankings, but that might just bring a little motivation to the Bulldogs.
You know, I think Sykeston's been number one in the SemoSportsWeb poll all season. We had them number one in our preseason poll. Now there's not much separating them and Farmington. You know, either one could probably be a good contender for a number one argument right now. But statewide, I think Sykeston's hurt their reputation a bit when they came out in that first week, lost to Gateway Tech. It wasn't an incredibly close game, a little misleading on paper, but I think people around the state looked at Sykeston and thought, well, they're not the team that they were last year, which is true, they're not, but Sykeston is a tough, solid team. They're a good program. They've really proven that even though they came out that very first week and lost to a Gateway Tech team, they've put together an incredible season since then. They may not be getting the looks from around the state at this point, but I think this is a chance for them to go out and say, you know what, we are the number one team in the area. We should be state ranked, and this is their chance to prove it.
Sure. That's going to be a great game to look forward to next week between Sykeston and Farmington for sure. And moving on to Class 5 District 1, and that's Rockwood Summit in the top spot so far, 2-0. Poplar Bluff at 1-1, Jackson at 1-1, and Seckman at 0-2. So Poplar Bluff and Jackson still in the playoff hunt, having a chance to at least come away with second place to move on to playoff play. So local teams, Poplar Bluff and Jackson, not quite out of it yet. And Rockwood Summit, definitely a good team there, as they're state ranked as well. So good luck to Poplar Bluff and Jackson. That's awful tough district with Rockwood Summit.
And you know, that's the only district in the immediate southeast Missouri area that really comes down to potentially the point system and the tiebreakers, where you're going into that last week where several teams are still in the hunt and they still do have something really big to play for. Because all these other districts that we just mentioned, all of those teams, those top two teams, they're locked in the playoffs. No matter what happens, they can come out and lose next week. They're still going on to that next week of the playoffs. So that Class 5 district, Poplar Bluff and Jackson, they're still out there. They know that they've got to win next week. They could use a little help to get into the playoffs, but they know they've got to win to keep going.
Sure. And before we let you go, Jamie, we're going to touch on some district volleyball getting underway starting Monday and Tuesday with the first rounds here at Southeast Missouri. And if we got those brackets, we'll just touch on those. Class 1, District 1 at Holcomb and South Penn. They're at number 1. They're at Holcomb. Your 4th and 5th seeds, North Pembescott and Southland. Holcomb and Hayti at 3 and 6, and Cooter and Delta C7 at 2 and 7. So this district will get underway Tuesday, starting at 4:30 with Cooter and Delta C7 and that Class 1 District 1 at Holcomb. Let's move on to Class 1 District 2 at Richland. Bernie's at the top spot with a bye. And Clarkton and Richland, the 4 and 5 matchup. The 3 and 6 matchup, Bell City and Campbell. And the 2 and 7 matchup, Gideon and Risco. That'll get underway 4 o'clock Monday with Clarkton and Richland. And Class 2 District 1 at Malden. Bloomfield, as we mentioned, ranked number 10 in the state in Class 2. They got the top spot with first round bye. Portageville and Zenith Hornersville. And the 4 and 5 matchup, the 3 and 6 matchup, Twin Rivers and Crothersville, and 2 and 7 matchup, Malden and Charleston. That'll get underway Monday at 4:30 with Portageville and Zenith Hornersville. In Class 3 District 1 at Dexter, Perryville with the top spot, and I believe they're in the ranked 2 or 3 in the state in Class 3. A really tough team this year. They've got the first round bye. The 4 and 5 matchup, Kennett and New Madrid County Central. 3-6 matchup, Dexter versus Fredericktown, and the 2-7 matchup, Notre Dame and Doniphan. This gets underway Monday at 5 o'clock between Kennett and New Madrid County Central. In Class, that's it? Okay, that's all the district tournaments we're touching on. And Jamie, this is a big time for the ladies in volleyball. We've got some tough teams here locally, most notably Scott City, number 1 ranked team in the state in Class 2. And also Bloomfield, number 10 in Class 2, and even Cape Notre Dame up in Class 3. They're ranked in the top 10 as well. So we've got some competitive volleyball teams here in Southeast Missouri as well.
You know, and that's this time of year, it's easy to get distracted by football and the last week of the season and the big playoff showdowns. But this area has always been possibly the best area in the state, especially for the small schools, the Class 1, the Class 2 schools. You've got Bloomfield, you've got Perryville, Scott City, Notre Dame. Then if you look a little bit to the west, you've got the Lesterville and Winona and Eminence, and those teams up through that area have just been so tough. And we do get to see those teams a little bit. They come out this way to the Cape tournament every year at the Show Me Center. And a lot of times you're going to get those teams in the state championship round. You might end up with 3 Southeast Missouri teams in the state championship. So Southeast Missouri is always one of the best volleyball areas in the state, and I think this year is no exception. You've got some really good teams. It's going to be fun to watch them. Yeah,
well, we should be looking forward to seeing how it all plays out with our local teams. Moving on to that state tournament, we've got Scott City winning the state tournament a few years ago, and they're back at that number 1 spot. So then Bloomfield's got a nice team to look forward to the districts as well. So we'll see how it all plays out, and we'll be covering it right here on YHC. So be sure to tune in to YHC Sports throughout the week, and we'll have the results for you. And Jamie, as always, it's good to have you on to include you, and especially your SEMO 34 poll that you publish each week. And we'll be sure to have you back at some point to talk about all this drama coming to a point here in Southeast Missouri in district football, moving on to the state playoffs.
Well, it's always a pleasure, Tyler. And you know what? A month from now, we're going to be here in basketballs on gym floors all across the area. Basketball season starts up really just a little bit over a month from now. So that's coming up right around the corner. It's coming up quick.
It sure is, and it's we've got a lot of teams to come back this year. We got some state champions here in Southeast Missouri, so it's going to be an exciting year to see those teams back on the floor once again. And Jamie, we thank you, and we'll be looking forward to talking to you in the future.
All right, thank you, Tyler.